Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer.
But who is he?
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer.
And who is he?
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer.
And what he do?
And it's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another fun-filled episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers, coming to you with breaking news with my pearl handle pistol cufflinks. I am board certified in the area of criminal defense. That's why my opinion matters in this, just because I know what I'm doing, that's all. Not because I'm such a great guy. Anyway, before we get to what we're going to react to today, which is a little more Andrew Tate news, this is brought to you by eSign.com. What did I say? I said eSign.com. If you have a form that needs a signature and you can't be in person with somebody, it really makes it easy. I use this all the time when we have a retainer agreement, for example. We email a retainer agreement to the client and they sign it through eSign.com, and just like they're in the room. So here's the deal. Andrew Tate has now had 11 of his vehicles seized. One of them was a Bugatti, and the Bugatti is worth $2.9 million. Now, you can't just seize somebody's assets. They have to be connected to somehow to illegal activity. Well, we know that Andrew Tate only had $70,000 when he left the fight game, right? And then he blew $30,000 of that on gambling, which I don't recommend to any of you guys. So let's talk about forfeiture, asset forfeiture, for example, for a second. Let's say I'm a drug dealer.
I sold drugs. I was a fighter, but fighting wasn't paying the bills, sold drugs. So I'm selling drugs.
Let's just use the drug analogy. And let's say that I'm making $100,000 a month and I'm making big money. And I go ahead and I take a house, I buy a house, and I do all these improvements to it, and I use cash or cashier's checks, and I just try to launder this money through my house. Well, I've got no other visible signs of income. And so now let's say I have a $2.3 million house, and I've been dealing weed for months. Well, if I've got no visible signs of income and, they catch me selling weed, it's probably from weed. Anything that's connected to illegal activity can be forfeited if it is the product of ill-gotten gains. In this case, there's 6 women that are accusing Andrew Tate of forcing them to have sex on camera, basically imprisoning them, and making them work without being able to leave, and basically forced fraud or coercion, right? 6 of them. So when they take these assets, a lot of times, or let's say you have stocks, like some guy who's got a Ponzi scheme, he's selling stock and he's selling investments, blah, blah, blah. Well, you take all the assets that are seized and then they distribute them among the people who are among the injured. So they could take these assets and use them for restitution, use them for the cost of the investigation, a whole host of things that you can do with that. So where does this go now? One of the first things I want to know is, what's his lawyer doing to investigate this case? Now, he has 6 people that are accusing him. Odds are he's got some of the women would be supporting him, you would think, unless he's fucked up every relationship so bad that everybody's against him. But I doubt that that's the case. And so what I would do if I was his lawyer, I would be working anybody that's not part of that original 6 to try to get them to discredit the original 6 and discredit them with hard, cold facts that you can't dispute, whether it be like money that they received, trips that they went on, gifts that they received, those kinds of things. Now, according to Vice talked to 2 women, and these 2 women reported all kinds of sexual assaults, rape, and some beatings and other really heinous activity back in 2015 when he was in London. And the Crown Prosecution Service, or CPS, declined to prosecute, and one of the reasons they declined to prosecute back then was because of some voice notes basically on their phones saying that they were drunk when this happened, and it's voice notes between the 2 ladies. These cases are very difficult to prove for the prosecution if there's other incriminating evidence, like, incriminating evidence that incriminates the victims or the people reporting the crime. So the first thing his lawyer is going to do is, okay, what do we need to discredit these women? And that's exactly where he's going to head. There's so much out there, though. There's just so much out there. His reason is a matter of record why he went to Romania to begin with. And so you've got all that kind of stuff going on. There's got to be other women out there, not one of the defendants, but other women out there who will discredit or attempt to discredit these 6 accusers. In this 2015 allegation, Tate and his lawyers denied the allegations, and they said the reason that they were doing this is because they fired him, and that there were these messages between them back and forth, basically saying they're going to get him and this is how they're going to do it. And so that's why they dropped that case. This is a very different case, what we have here today. We have 6 people. We don't know exactly what they know and exactly what they're telling the authorities, except for just the general vague nature of what's going on. The allegation back then was that he had strangled these women. And one of the quotes was, "Which one of you hoes is going to be the one I'm going to strangle today," or something like that. Now, the Crown Prosecution Service declined that prosecution. And they did so because they didn't feel that they had the burden, they couldn't meet the burden of proof. And I assume his lawyer will do something similar in this current case, where they just really have to try to discredit each and every one of these women. The problem is if they're corroborated even a little bit, it's going to be very difficult for him to get over that. So you have to look at what is the evidence that they have. They have the evidence of these 6 girls testifying against him, right? They're going to have some story, and it's got to be X, Y, or Z. But then they also have his own statements. His own statements and just a shit ton of videos that he's put out there for Hustler University. And those can be used against him. Now, his argument's going to be, oh, this was said in jest, this was bravado, this is just a persona, blah, 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 right? And that may or may not be. But when you are arguing, I didn't mean what I said, it's going to be difficult for us to believe you now. Are you lying then? Or are you lying now? And when you have something that's self-serving, and you watch some of his statements, he really takes glee in the abuse that and the control and the power that he has over these women. So it's going to be a tough sell for him to say that these were just jokes, this is just a persona, this is whatever, especially if these women are corroborated. He indicated in a statement that this is 40% of the reason why he left England to go to Romania.
Probably 40% of the reason I moved to Romania, because in Eastern Europe, none of this garbage flies. When people say, why did you live in Romania? And I explain my 5 reasons. One of them is the Me Too era. They go, oh, well, you're a rapist. I say, no, I'm not a fucking rapist. But I like the idea of being able to just say, to do what I want. I like being free.
It's still, women are in a different position than they were 10 years ago. But it's still very, very difficult to prove. There's a really high burden. Any discrepancy can be viewed as lying. And so it's a difficult case for the prosecution in a vacuum. But when you have his own words, you have the testimony of 6 women, and you have a lot to back it up. Because my guess is that there probably is even some footage in his $600,000 house that he had, by the way, where some of this is probably going to be corroborated. So we'll keep following Mr. Tate, and it's tough when somebody takes your shit, especially if they're that expensive, because they don't really know how to handle a Bugatti. Bugatti is a $3 million car basically, and it wouldn't take much to wreck something on that. So you got some ex-welder who is the tow truck driver, hooks a hook to the front of the thing. And so we'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts. We'll follow this, we'll follow that. Make sure you follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Patreon. And we'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts.
Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. 23-hour lockdown, please, is that my God?